So this thing is overpriced in the Philippines. Not cars, not rent, not any of that. But as I've stated in the past, and as you can tell by the recent data that's came out, especially in Manila in particular, condos. Manila condos have a 34-month backlog, and they are grossly overpriced from a rent to purchase price perspective, and just in general, they are way overpriced. And you can tell when you're renting a 15 million or over $250,000 condo for 700 bucks that something is wrong with that picture. So I had been saying this for quite some time, and now the official data has came out, and they're admitting that there's a 34-month backlog on condos, which is terrible, terrible data. That means people are really holding off on buying, and that people have finally realized that the value just isn't there on that, 500 square foot condo being $250,000 and renting for, $500 to $800. It's just not there. You got this nightclub, BSK. This is kind of new here in High Street, BGC. Taking a little Christmas Eve walk. But yeah, so at the end of the day, the value just isn't there. And the problem is there's no MLS, so there's really no accountability. It's kind of hard to get comps. It's not like America where you can kind of determine what your property is valued. It's kind of like worth whatever someone's willing to pay. And if one person overpays, unfortunately that creates a comp. If some dumb foreigner comes into town and, double prices. And the same thing with renting. You'll see people renting condos for 130, 150 that are literally 85,000 Filipino price, but they'll come in and think, oh, well, I lived in America and I paid, $5,000 a month, so 2,500 a month is good. And they won't even think about the square footage, and they'll grossly overpay. And then these owners will want to hold out when they move out to not get 85 because they just got 130 from some dummy that just rolled off the turnip truck. So you got to be careful with what you pay for a condo, because you're creating a comp. And yeah, if you don't care, that's cool, and you're new in town and you're dumb, but essentially you're creating a comp and you're driving the prices up for everybody by being a dumb green foreigner that just got off the boat. So be careful with that, and do your homework. Talk to a Filipino or Filipina, or do some research before you rent that condo for 50% or 100% more than it's worth, because you're not doing anyone any favors. And even if you're rich, you shouldn't overpay for things. That's how you stay rich, is by not overpaying. So I suggest you do some homework. And yeah, the 34-month backlog shows that people just simply aren't buying anymore, and the rental prices are softening too. I just got a condo that probably should have been 60, and I know neighbors are paying 64 for 45. You're at more like 750 a square foot here in BGC, when it was definitely 1,000 a year ago. I know previous tenants were paying 60 for this condo. They wanted 55, I offered 45, no 2-month deposit, no post-dated checks. They came back again trying to get a 2-month deposit and trying to get post-dated checks. I said no, and they folded. Many other people I know are getting stuff at about 750 a square foot. On bigger condos, that's obviously easier. On a smaller condo, it's just like, what's someone willing to pay? Like there's condos that have been vacant since September and they're still holding out for the same exact price, and they're not admitting defeat while losing 4 months rent. So keep that in mind. It's definitely a buyer's market or even a renter's market right now, and you don't have to rent the first condo that you see. You can definitely take your time, and don't be desperate. Shop around, make an offer and stick to that offer unless you want to play the countering game. On buying something, as I've said in previous videos or live streams, Boracay, I'm seeing fire sales on 10 million peso condos for 6 million. Cebu, I'm seeing think it was 5.1 for a 10 million condo in Mactan. And Manila, the data is in 34-month backlog. So it's definitely not looking good for the sellers. People, things are only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And right now, people are just not willing to pay the developer price. The developers have not admitted defeat, but you see fire sales going on left and right, even in BGC, 20 to 30% off. And certainly in Cebu, Boracay, and places outside BGC, like, different condos like in Poblacion. I won't say any names, but yeah, there's some condos where you can definitely get some slamming deals, and it's a lot cheaper than a year ago. And it really just comes down to the owners getting starved out for renters or for buyers. It's not really a thing where you can dictate just because it used to sell a year or two ago for whatever. That just doesn't really matter anymore, because if you stay with a vacant place for 6 months, even if you're rich, you're losing your ass just on your homeowner's dues. And if you're trying to sell a place and it's not selling for 8, you're gonna drop it to 7.5. If it's not selling for 7.5, you're gonna drop it to 7. If it's not selling for 7, you're gonna drop it to 6.5, and eventually you're gonna find a buyer at what it's actually worth. And the thing about the Philippines that's different is they have tiny condos that are like 200 square feet in, buildings with amenities and in buildings and stuff, and that just doesn't exist in the West. Generally, a high rise is gonna be at least 600-700 square feet. So it'll give you the illusion that you're getting a cheaper deal in a place like BGC, but you're really not. I mean, you're getting access to amenities and stuff like that, but you're really in a situation where you're paying almost the same per square foot as you are in like a Los Angeles or somewhere like that. So just keep that in mind when you think you're getting a cheap deal. You might not be. So just wanted to bring that to you. That finally came true. What I've been screaming for 9 months, a year, about how these condos are grossly overpriced for purchase. And now it's even softening on the rent. Like, you could buy these condos in pre-sale for like 4 or 5 million that are now 10, 11, 12, and have softened down to like 8, or they're doing fire sales for 7. But the reality is that the rent only went up like 5K here in BGC. And now we're in a situation where the rent is even softening. To get a condo that's, 600-700 square feet in a premium building on a high floor for $750 a square foot or less was absolutely unheard of a year or two ago. But again, a lot of people have left. A lot of the people that are in that type of bracket. I talked to somebody and they said everybody wants studios. Everybody wants a studio for 30K. So these 1 bedrooms for 55, or that they're eventually going to get 45 or 54, are sitting because everybody wants to just have access to the amenities and be in BGC. They don't really care about having a huge living room or this or that or the extras. They don't mind a little 350 square foot studio. So that totally makes sense that the market would be suffering in that sense. And that mainly people want studio types. Mainly people don't really have real money and they're looking for that 30K studio type. And that makes sense. You could spend that other money on travel. You could spend that other money on, food. You could spend that other money on going out and drinking, whatever it is that you like. So that makes perfect sense to a guy like me. But for me, I wanted to treat myself this time around. I paid $45 before for a studio type at at Uptown Park Suites. And anything with a sliding partition is not a 1 bedroom. That's a studio. So keep that in mind. They'll try to call it a 1 bedroom. It's not, it's a studio type. And at the end of the day, you get what's comfortable for you. For me, I've never had a big apartment in the Philippines. And when me and my girl went to Boracay, and we got a Airbnb for 17 days that was like a huge, or when I say huge, I mean Philippines huge, 700-800 square foot place with like a center island and a huge bedroom and a huge living room and a balcony and all that. I said, oh, I want to live American style. I want to get something like this in Manila. And ever since then, my mind was made up that I was going to settle for nothing but that. But for you might want to start out with a studio type, or if 30K is your comfort zone, you can live in BGC. If you're willing to live outside BGC in places like Mandaluyong, you can live for 20K. Trust me, hit me up and I'll tell you the places to do it, or book a consultation. JasperInThePhilippines@gmail.com. I go live most weekdays or most days in general around 9 a.m. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and sana all.